Right, welcome to the Wednesday Bike Club, everybody. And what are we talking about today? Well, it was actually going to be something completely different. I was going to tell you all about the Kawasaki, my W650, and what I was going to do to it, which I will tell you some of the things that I'm going to do to it. But it got me thinking about, the classic bike market, and, should you start to chop and, angle grind bits of your bike, which I am going to do, and change the look pretty much completely? Is that a good thing to do to what we might consider sort of like a modern classic, I suppose? And it got me thinking about the classic bike market and where it is, because there's been quite a big change now, and it was sort of just a chat around why those things have changed, and why is that certainly pre-war, and there's a big melee of bikes in the sort of middle of the collector's corner. You've got the bottom end of the market, the top end, your Bruff Superiors, and this big mass in the middle, isn't you? Sort of think, where is that heading, and will that ever recover from its sort of doldrum that it's in now? So I thought that would be the topic of our subject today. Right, I'm not going too far because it's probably going to rain. So I'm going to go to the little Sussex pond. I'm hoping that my bench will be free with my little spluttering Kawasaki, because I've got no joke on. But yeah, let's go and have a chat about it. Come on. Right, so here we are, somewhere I have been. This is Wisborough Green, but my bench was taken by the pond. What's it all about? Anyway, this will do before it pours the rain. So where am I coming from with this? So initially, this video was going to be about the lovely W650 behind me and what I was going to do to it, and I will tell you some of the things I am going to do to it. But I thought, what suddenly occurred to me is that there was a point, wasn't there, with classic bikes, and you might think of this as a modern classic, I suppose. Although I have insured this as a classic. I think Bennett's, although I'm insured with this one, classes as a classic, so it's on the same policy as my 1962 T90. So quite interesting, isn't it? And there used to be this big thing, didn't there, years ago about, should you keep classic bikes original as possible, not change them at all? And when I think about what I'm going to do to this bike, I really am going to chop it about a bit and change the colour, go at it with an angle grinder. And is that a sensible thing to do? And do you think that's something that still rings true in the sort of collectible bike market? The bikes like this they are collectible, aren't they? But not in a sort of true sense, like a Bruff Superior or some of those really beautiful old Triumphs and stuff like that. So I thought it'd be interesting to sort of think what people think now and look at the classic bike market, because I think there's a whole raft of bikes, isn't there, in this sort of middle area of classic bikes, which seem to be really struggling price wise. I don't know if any of you guys watched the Bangers and Cash. It's great, isn't it? That's really funny, but it's an interesting insight, isn't it, into the classic vehicle market. And they're saying on those programs now that the market certainly in pre-war cars is gone. And they don't see that coming back because of the demographic of people buying those cars, or that were running those cars. And I think it's the same with motorbikes, and there's some interesting stuff around this. When I go to some of those bike jumbles and you look at the bikes which seem to come to the jumbles again and again and again, which aren't selling, and I think some of those guys are living on prices which just don't exist anymore. And I think there's going to be a huge readjustment of the classic bike market price wise. I think bikes, the top end of the market, the Bruffs and the really rare Triumphs and stuff like that, will always have a reasonable market, because they're a worldwide market, aren't they? There's people around the world waiting for the next Bruff to come up. And stuff like that, and when you think like Vincent's and stuff like that, there's only a finite number of those, aren't there? And there's a waiting list of people to buy those, and that always keeps the market buoyant. And I think the other end of the market is the small bikes, the cheaper bikes, things like the Bantams and, like my T90 and stuff, which are cheap to buy, relatively cheap to buy to get into that market. And there's still people still manufacturing those. But it's that pool of bikes sort of in the middle now, which, are really struggling price. So people don't want to take them on. They're too much of an investment to just have sitting there because they can't get the parts, or, they don't like running on modern fuels. And this is something I wanted to come on to because, I've said this before about we're building this built-in obsolescence to everything we buy now, because otherwise if you have something that lasts forever, the manufacturer's never going to have to make it again. So, once everybody's got one, that's the end of your business. And I think we're starting to we're forcing some of these classic vehicles and bikes to become obsolete because of fuel in particular, isn't it? We're running, I don't know, what's fuel made out of these days? Banana skins and sausages, I don't know. And earlier bikes don't like it. Even my classic 350s and those JC's engines don't really like E10, they prefer E5. And you end up with problems, don't you, when you just cannot find the fuel to put in your bike now. You end up having to drain the whole thing down through the winter and all that sort of stuff. And I think we're starting to make these things obsolete, and that's really sad, isn't it? That's really sad, that thing. When there's so many beautiful bikes out there which are just stunning to ride and stunning to look at. Do we want these things just to become ornaments? Which are just put in someone's, I don't know, front room or posh office, or they end up as a display piece in some trendy clothing store, don't they? And that's what they end up as, isn't it? And the only time you'll get to see these bikes will be in museums. And will the museums survive? Will they just become such a curio? Which is really sad, isn't it? Because I think these bikes were built to be ridden. And this is what brings me on to bikes like this. What's the point in saving its originality anymore? Because you're not retaining its value, I don't think. And when you go back and look at that, Bangers and Cash, when they get the film crew, don't they, buy a car, and then they, for a certain amount, and they stick a load of money in it to make it as best they can, and they still get the same price for it. That putting all that money into it, it just doesn't make any difference. The vehicle has its price. Nobody really cares whether it's mint or not. They just want it original, don't they? People want the original vehicle. And I think I always find it really interesting that they'll put 20 grand into it and it still sells for 10 grand, which is what they paid for it. That's funny, isn't it, really, how that works? And I think it's the same with these bikes. Will turning this into a scrambler lose any of its value? Well, by the time I finish, it's going to owe me about 2.5 grand, and that included buying the bike. Because it's really just cutting and spraying and titivating and giving it the look. And I don't think I would I? If you do that, I might lose a little bit of the value, but I don't think anybody really cares whether it's original or not. There'll always be the bias for the completely original bikes, but I think you might as well get your fun out of it, rather than just ride it in not the way that you wanted it. You bought it to customise it, so you might as well do that. I think the other pressure on bikes of this type is, how cheap some of the modern retro classics are. The classic 350, the classic 650, the Bantam and all that sort of stuff. They're so cheap. You don't, you can have all that classic look with modern reliability in inverted commas. And I think that's killed these bikes, isn't it? The people, the old guys that were buying all these classic bikes now sort of think, oh, geez, I can't bother to kick. I'm the same as me. I can't bother to kick that over. I just want to be able to press the button. I want it to be fuel injected. I want to be able to run on modern fuels. And I want to be able to press the button, go out on it, but still feel like I'm part of the classic bike scene. I think that sort of thing started with the Mini, didn't it? When BMW brought out the new shape Mini back in 2001. That set the ball rolling, didn't it, for all these retro styled vehicles. We had the Beetle, didn't we? And now you see this again and again and again. We've had the Renault 5 come back out. It's a nice car actually. I saw a lot of those in France. We've had the Fiat Panda. We've all these retro cars come back with something that looks like a classic vehicle, but with all the modern reliability, again inverted commas. So, so where does that leave us? Will the market for, going back to motorbikes, will the market for classic bikes come back? I don't know if it will. I think you have this thing where certain bikes will be popular. You may have this situation where the modern fuel injected bikes. I remember things when I took Karen's Series 1 Street Triple out. What a fabulous bike. That will be the era that people will, the next generation or next couple of generations of people think, oh, that's the bike to have. It's got all the modern facilities, fuel injection, all the rest of it, great engine. And that will probably be the classic of the future. You get these little revivals in bikes like that. You get someone does an article in a magazine and everybody wants one and the prices go up and then they dip down again. And I've seen it with this. These were really flying value-wise, 3,500, 4,000 for a really, really good one. Now you look at it, since I bought one, you look in the adverts and they're all sort of 2.5 for a really good one. The market's sort of not collapsed, but it's found its level again. And I think that's it. I don't see it coming back. I really don't see it coming back. I think carbureted bikes, the end of the carburetor era has gone with the new fuels. I think people don't want the aggravation, even though carburetors are very easy to work on if you can get them off easy enough. This was a bit of a pig. That's why we cut the airbox and we put K&Ns on it. But when you look at my Triumph, it's just simply just pull the damn thing on. It's just there. There's nothing in the way. So it might save some of the easy to work on bikes, but when you look at some of those 70s, 80s, 90s bikes, the carburetor bikes, there's quite a lot going on there, aren't they? They're not easy to strip, particularly when you've got 4 carbs. What a pain in the arse that is. 2's enough, isn't it? 1's great, but 2's enough. And I think those bikes are sort of disappearing. There's just not the market for them, even though they're fantastic bikes, and there's some great 4-cylinders there. But we all went massive into twins, didn't we? Really, the triple still bubbles away, but it's all twins, isn't it? So I don't know. What do you think? So when you think about this bike, the rear mudguard's going to be cut, changing the tyres, going to have scrambler tyres, and there's going to have trials type tyres on it. It's going to change colour, the rear light's going to go, there's going to have a different smaller little light on it, the position of the mudguard, position of the number plate and stuff like that. I'm getting an idea that I might do it in yellow. I've got an idea to do it in that like BSA yellow. It's going to have new rear suspension. The suspension, I've got some of the Interceptor rear shocks, those piggyback rear shocks, which is an absolute bargain. I thought I was going to have to pay about £95. I paid £55 posted. So it's going to lift it a little bit by a couple of centimetres and stuff like that. So do you think that matters? Do you think it really matters that I'm going to change the bike that much and give it a completely different look? I don't think it does. I'm not losing anything, am I really? I'm gaining something that I gain a bike that I want to ride and I like. And I think that's the thing. I think the bikes like this now, they're, at the end of the day, they are just sort of tin and rubber, I suppose. They're more than that to us, aren't they, when we ride them, because we just get such joy out of riding them. But do you think the classic motorbike market is now dead with the introduction of modern classics and the ultra reliable Bonnevilles and all that sort of stuff? I think it's. I just think if you came into that market at the wrong time and didn't read it right, I think as an investment, I think you're in a hiding to nothing. I think you're going to lose an awful lot of money, which is such a shame unless you keep hold of it. You never lose any money if you don't sell them, do you? And that's the key to that. And I think that's important, isn't it? I think if you buy it to ride it, you never lose any money. You never lose any money. You only lose any money if you sell it. And I think that's really important. A lot of people worry too much about the value in bikes, but I think it's, they're never an investment you're going to make money on unless you can buy all the Bruff Superiors in the world. So you call to the market. But I think I think if you, whatever you paid for it is, you were happy to pay for it at the time, and if you keep hold of it, it's always worth that amount to you. You know, it's only worth less when you sell it, and I think that's the important thing. But my view, yeah, I'm having at this year. This winter, I'm going to get the angle grinder and cut the mud guard and all that sort of stuff on it, and just enjoy the fun of just turning it into the bike that I really want, that I can play with. I'm still not sure about the yellow. What do you think? I really like the yellow silver, the scramble and that Bantam. I like the idea that it's already got some silver on the tank, and I thought I might be able to adapt it, but I may have to just do the whole thing, but we shall see. Right, hope you enjoyed that little Wednesday bike club chat. Let me know in the comments, what do you think about the current classic motorbike market? Is it still there, or has it shifted? What's your thoughts on it? Let me know. Right, take care everybody. I'm gonna go and get a coffee, I think, from the Mill Cafe, which is just over there. It's quite chilly, but it hasn't rained, so that's good. Right, take care everybody, look after yourselves, and please ride safe. See you soon.